Hey, I retired in the summer of 2005, just over 20 years ago. How did I do it, right? So imagine being able to retire now. Imagine it's not, early retirement isn't just a dream. I did it 20 years ago, and I'm going to share how that happened so that early retirement, retiring now, is no longer going to be just a dream for you. That I've done it and you can really do it. So let's get going on this journey of early retirement. Welcome to Goose Pond Hideout, and I'm Rob. So I was just thinking the other day that, gee whiz, it's been 20 years since I retired. And it was, again, the summer of 2005. And, the things that I did so that I could retire and what's happened since I've retired. And I thought that would be really helpful for you so that you can get out of that rat race life, going to a job that you don't really want to go to, that traditional image of getting out of school when you're young and working your whole life till you're 62, 65, whatever, and then retiring and enjoying life. That's always been, to be honest with you, it's really been a fantasy. And to use a quick example of what I'm talking about is think back like when Social Security started in the early 1900s, 1930s. I believe the first checks went out in 1940, 1941. But anyway, when Social Security started, as we all know, the payout, your retirement age for Social Security was 65. But the lifespan of the typical American person was about 60. So, the thought you were kind of like never really supposed to get the money, right? Half the people in the country were gone by the time they turned 60. And you didn't get the payout till 65. And that's kind of the general gist of you work your whole life, and then when you get old enough to retire, you're going to drop dead at any time. So you're never really going to get to enjoy those senior retired years of doing what you want to do. And that's why you should be doing what you want to do now, right away. And so, I was in my 40s, mid 40s, and several things happened in my life. My first wife asked for a divorce, and that really threw me. I hurt my back and had to get on all kinds of painkillers and muscle relaxants and stuff. And I noticed that my eyes were going, and I've always had like perfect, excellent vision. And in my late 40s, I had to start wearing reader glasses so I could read magazines and books and things. And a few other things happened. And, that was my wake-up call that, do I want to keep living like this? For example there, my office, my business, my insurance company wanted me to put a new roof on the building and completely redo the electrical work because they said it was an old building, and they said the electrical was antiquated. And what happened is I started thinking that I'm just working and making money so that I can just pay all these bills. And what's the point of that? How's my little fire doing here? Let me throw a couple more pieces of wood in. All right, I just said I don't want to do this anymore, and that was my final aha moment. And I said I'm going to retire. So in early 2004, I cut all my expenses down to bare bones. I was like, I'm gonna live as minimalistic as I can, and I, started saving my money, and I just, saving cash, saving everything, and you know, living as frugally as I could live. And I started that in 2004. And then I started selling everything. And, you know, like truck, car, motorcycle. I actually I traded the motorcycle to a guy for some other things. But anyway, same difference. And everything in the house, and I eventually sold the house, and all, you know, just saved every nickel that I could for a year. And then I retired in the summer of 2005, and I bought a sailboat and moved down to the Gulf Coast and started living on the sailboat. So on the boat, I literally, the only expense I had was eating and my cell phone. And so the boat was solid. It was a good solid boat, but everything was inoperative. The refrigerator didn't work, the stove didn't work, the radio didn't work, all the living. The engine was good, the hull was good, the sails, actually I had the head sail restitched at a sail shop to make it better. And all the lines, the halyards and everything were all good. And so I spent a couple years, you know, I put a new refrigerator in, put a new stove in, and spent money working on the boat. And so for 2 years, that's about what I did, is the boat stuff. And then I got the bright idea I actually got a job at West Marine, which West Marine, it's a boating store. And back in the day, 2007, 8, in that time frame, most of the people that worked there were boaters. And the reason we all worked there is because you got a heavy discount on everything that they sold at the store. So, I mean, it was like a huge discount. Some of the stuff was a fraction of, like, materials like wires and hoses and things like that. You got for almost nothing. So that's why we all worked there, so that we could buy the materials for our boat. And so I worked there for a little while, and we lived on the boat, my second wife and I, and we lived on there for 9 years. Ended up living on the boat for 9 years. And then we moved to our homestead here. And again, it's living minimalistic. You get so caught up in that big city world of cars and clothes and apartments and, you know, McMansion houses and the services. You know, you look at your Visa or MasterCard bill and you got all these recurring charges of you know, crazy expenses that half of them you probably don't even know what they are. And you know, you want to, I mean, we live on almost nothing here on the homestead. We have electricity and my wife likes to watch TV, so we have satellite TV, and I have internet service, and we each have a cell phone, and I mean, that's about it. And then we buy our, you know, food, what we need for food that's from the store. And it's just being minimalistic and living the way that you want to live your life and not getting caught up in that thing. So, I mean, 20 years now, and I feel good about it. One thing that I did do, wow, good thing I had my hat on there. Hitting the head. We got crazy acorns this year. It's a bumper crop. I feel like I'm walking around on marbles when I walk around feeding the chickens and stuff. But I did go without health insurance for a long time when I, quote, retired in 2005. I had no insurance, but thankfully I'm healthy. I don't, you know, see a doctor. I don't take any medications other than some ibuprofen or, you know, that. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be thinking about. But you know, 20 years, and here I am today, and I know that you can do it if you quit thinking, you know, that old saying to think outside the box, is retire, you know, do things at your own pace, budget yourself, you start, save up, live as frugally as you can. And I know, you can do it. You can live out here in the country, you can live on a sailboat. We threw around the idea of being in an RV, and we decided we wanted to stay in one place for now. Who knows what the next chapter might bring, right? So, but I mean, it really is possible. And so if you're young, don't be caught up into that, I've got to go to work, I got to make money because I've got to pay for this and pay for that. Is, get a tiny home, get an RV. Lots of people are, living that way, and you can, earn enough. The other thing about the traditional retirement is that, that work, and then retire and you quote do nothing except have fun, right? You go golfing every day or whatever your fantasy is. And a saying that I picked up that I learned from someone important to me when I was young is, if you're not making money, you're spending money. And that really sticks with me. If you're not making money, you're spending money. So, I never actually really retired. Like that first couple of years when we left and moved onto the boat, because I was working on the boat, so the boat was my job, and I was spending money, obviously. And then, I got that part-time job at West Marine, and I've, picked up other things, tutoring, online, digital tutoring, teaching some classes, selling eggs. There's, you want to stay active. You want to keep making money, and, just find whatever your passion is and incorporate that. If you like, make soaps, do photography, art, all this AI stuff now is, maybe you can incorporate that into a way that you can make some funds so that you can, supplement your life until you get older. And the one thing that is harmful, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier on while I'm talking to you here, but the one thing that is hurtful that you really got to be careful of is inflation, because we've just had some inflation recently, and it really, when you're not working in the system, in the rat race, and you're on your own living a minimalist lifestyle, inflation can really hit you hard. And just to give, you old timers know what I'm talking about, but if you go back, we had super inflation in the 70s and to, the early 80s. And by way of example, in 1965, the average Social Security payout was, I think it was $84, 84, 87, something like, I think it was $84 was this monthly payment. That was your Social Security payment, 84 bucks a month. And if you had your home paid off and you had $30,000 in the bank in investments in 1965, you were good to go. I mean, you were set. Your $84 Social Security payment, your house is paid off, and you got 30 grand in the bank. You were good to go in 1965. By 1975, the Social Security payout was up to like $207, up, 150%, 2.5 times, and you needed about $100,000 in the bank to retire in 75. So so if you retired in like 67 or 68 and you thought you were good to go, by 1975 you're basically screwed because there was so much inflation. And then in 1980 inflation was double digits, was huge. So people that retired and were banking on their savings, were in big trouble. And that's the same thing that just happened here a few years ago after the pandemic ended and the government started spending money like a drunken sailor. and to help people out. I mean, I get it, but they've kept spending it, and because once they start something, they can't stop it. And we've had a lot of inflation, and it's hit us. Our car insurance has doubled, our homeowners insurance has doubled, our property taxes have gone up a lot. I think they wanted like an 80% increase a couple years ago, and they only got like a 35% increase, and then they did, so you know, it only went up a little bit this year. We just got the bill the other day, but so it's about a 50% more. You know, if it was $1,000, now it's $1,500. So when you're living retired, that inflation is the one thing that can make your life unpleasant. And so, but what are you going to do, right? You can't just keep working at a job that you don't like, because who wants to have another bad day at work? You'd rather be out here. We're happy on the homestead. I want you to be happy, whatever it is, because I want you to have your freedom, living your dream, and being happy. Freedom!